Hey, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to start. Just before I think I kick off with tonight's session, I just want to remind you that your assignments are due next week, early next week. Is there anything that you want to chat about regarding the assignments before we start this evening? Are you comfortable with it? You know that the assignment is due next week. All good. Okay. And then just if you are done, try and submit it onto ARC. Make sure it goes through, turn it in. Make sure that your referencing is checked, got in-text referencing. You haven't used AI unethically, please. So don't create an opportunity for you not to do well in that first formative. So if you're comfortable with it, then upload that on. Okay, once you've done that, if you've completed your ISTARs, that's great. If not, just try and get to those as soon as you can, because after assignment 2, once that comes in, then the formatives start coming in very quickly. And the semester is halfway through already, so don't let it pile up. If you are still working through that assignment, due next week, Tuesday, the 31st, you are working through this weekend. If you reach a point where you are stuck, please just WhatsApp me. I think it'll be quicker. And if you need guidance on that, okay, I'm still available during that time. Okay, so before we start, is there anything you want to chat about? Have you been going through anything, through any of the chapters? Is there anything you don't understand that you want me to go through this evening? You comfortable? And I just want to also say, at this point, I hope that you do have a copy of the text. Okay, so try and get yourself a copy of the textbook because you're going to use that textbook in the actual exam. So you're going to take it in with you, and make sure that you have the correct version of the textbook. Also, there have been some students that have contacted me, just they're getting a little bit confused with which business management is their module. Um, so business management, I think BMNB is for the BCom, general BCom and all its streams. And the BMAN is your module, right? So make sure you check code and you're using the correct assignment as well. So we spoke about assignment 1. Just be mindful of that due date, please. Remember the cut-off time. And if you submit after that, there's a penalty, and then more than 24 hours late, assignment can't be marked. Okay. Right, so at this point in the semester, your first assignment covered learning units 1 to 5. And this evening, we're going to go through learning unit 4 and 5, so important aspects from there. And then that is halfway through course already. Okay. So if you've started to study, that's great. If you haven't, it's not too late. So start reading through textbook, reading through the information. Okay. So learning unit 4 deals with, up until this point, we've spoke about management in general, spoke about entrepreneurship. We spoke about if somebody wants to start a business, the different options that are available to them, how they go about that, the legal requirements. And then now we are proceeding into actual management and what do managers do, the different functions of management. So from this point on, you're going to see that it's all going to build. So Heisenberg defines a manager according to the roles that they play. And so there are various managers, various types of roles that managers play. However, one person can do all of these roles and they can do it interchangeably. So when you look at the different roles, there are 3 categories according to Heisenberg. First one is informational, okay, and that deals with gathering information, processing information, sharing information. Second one is interpersonal, and that deals with skills relating to people, discussions, and relationships. And then we have decisional roles, and that is where a manager has to make those difficult choices with handling resources, dealing with employees, and handling crises. So under each of these 3 broad categories, there's different roles that person a manager can play. So under informational role, a manager is responsible for monitoring the environment, and this can be both external, where they monitor market trends, competitors, customers, all that framework that we looked at last week, where we had micro, market, and macro. Here, a manager monitors all three of those environments for latest trends, news, anything that can signal a change for the business. So currently, if you were in the transport industry or you had any operations that were around fuel, the signal a manager would pick up, that the latest signal is that fuel is going to increase. And so they will then make decisions around. In a disseminator role, disseminator means to share and to provide feedback. So once a manager monitors and gets all the information, they then share it with the necessary persons. So if they have information that would benefit the marketing department, they will share it accordingly. They have information that will benefit strategic management, they would do that. They also share policies and procedures and goals with employees. They share information about the organization with stakeholders. So it's about sharing and transferring information. And a spokesperson is where a manager speaks either on behalf of the company or to external stakeholders, or they can speak internally on behalf of their employees, on behalf of their department. So in this role, if you're part of middle management and your department is unhappy, the employees need an increase, so they're unhappy with the way things are going, it's then your responsibility to be that spokesman on behalf of them and take their concerns to senior management. In addition to that, a manager acts as a figurehead, so a leader for people, someone that the employees can look up to, a liaison. So in their informational role, they're a spokesperson, so they go and they speak on behalf of the employees. And whatever information they share it as a disseminator. And then if the employee is unhappy, they go back. So essentially, they can liaise between departments, between staff. They can also liaise between stakeholders. So between the company and competitors, between the company and supply chain, they speak on behalf. And then obviously a leader, you know what that is. They are somebody that can be trusted, somebody that leads people, and they have people that follow them because they recognize a trait in them. And then we have a decisional role. So a decisional role is as it is. They take those hard decisions. They work through possibilities and they stick to something. So an entrepreneur is somebody that takes decision to start a business, launch a new line, change a product, add a new product. Those are all entrepreneurial decisions. Within a company, a manager can be an entrepreneur in the sense that they can help the company launch a new product. They can identify a gap in the market and serve that gap. They also serve as negotiators. I don't think anybody doesn't know what a negotiator is. And this can be between various parties. So they can negotiate between their department and senior management for increases, better working conditions. They can negotiate between company and creditors, supply chain, suppliers, anybody in that supply chain. So they speak on behalf of the company and help reach decisions. Disturbance handler is where there's a crisis and they step in and they sort of mitigate crises. And then a resource allocator in this role, they recognize that they have limited resources and they make decisions on where those resources go to. And sometimes in the resource allocator, we sort of categorize it as a difficult decision because this can also mean if finances are limited or any other resources for that matter, they can prioritize certain departments, and that's when you start to get retrenchments and layoffs. But those are all strategic decisions of management. That's quite a lot. What is important to understand is that one person does all of these roles. So the manager, we are saying, is somebody that can interchangeably go through these different roles in one discussion or in one day. So you're not going to have different people with different strengths doing these things. It's one person who we call our manager, and in different roles, they go and they serve this purpose. What I've done is um, I've sort of created a scenario for you. And you can see how a manager would go through a task and in one tone, on one sort of scene, go through the different roles. Okay. So I'm going to go through this example and then we're going to pause a little bit and see if we have taken all of that in. This is a fictional example. A faculty manager is tasked with launching a student innovation hub on campus, and the hub will provide entrepreneurial support, workshops, and mentorship for students. So the manager begins by gathering student and staff feedback on what services the hub should offer. Just in that one task, they are informational role monitors, right? After reviewing information, they share the findings with the academic staff in a briefing session, disseminating information, and later present the project process report to the dean and external stakeholders, their spokesperson. Set the tone, the manager officially opens the hub at the launch ceremony. Figurehead, so somebody that's taking a decision and leading out something. They then connect with local businesses and NGOs to build partnerships for students, internships, liaison, and motivate their faculty team to embrace the hub as a tool for student success. They are leading. Ever challenges arise, two departments disagree over who should lead the certain workshop, and the manager steps in to mediate and resolve a disturbance handler. And at the time, the budget is limited, so the manager decides how funds should be allocated between student equipment, training, and marketing, a resource allocator. And then when IT systems for the hub crashes just before a workshop, the manager quickly coordinates a creative backup plan using available computer labs, an entrepreneur because there's strategic thinking. They also negotiate with an external vendor to provide discounted equipment in exchange for branding opportunities, and that's a decisional role as a negotiator. Okay. So this is just an example of how a manager can go through various things, various roles. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Everybody comfortable? What we've just discussed. So this is an example. Yes, Joel, you can unmute if you like.
Hi, sorry, I clicked that by accident.
No problem. So this is just an example how theory can be applied to a solution. And this is how you'll be asked in an exam. So it is important to understand um, theory that comes from the textbook. You're not going to be able to just explain. You're going to have to apply it. And I think you're doing that now with your assignments. So if you are comfortable with assignment one and you're really just applying your knowledge and you're not trying to go for the first time and read content, I think you're going to be okay. Right? But if you are struggling to apply, please just let me know. And if it means I chat with you offline as well, we can do that. So this is the type of understanding that you need to create. Cameron?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to quickly ask. So, question 3 in the assignment, that probably relates back to this. So, do we need to put in like the specific roles, like the interpersonal role, like the subcategories of that into our infographic, or how how do we like link this to that?
I'm laughing because I can't remember your assignment off my head. But
Question 3 is it's sorry, my brain and my words don't want to link
it's
together.
okay.
It asks you to create an infographic on the different roles in management based on a company or a organization of our choosing.
I'll pull up your assignment quickly, and then we can go through that. Thank you for bringing that in, because that's the type of discussions we need to have. Have it at the top of my head, that would be great. So share this quickly. Question you're speaking about.
It's question 3.
Choose an industry of your choice and create an infographic that shows the different managerial skills. No, okay, so that's different, and we're going to go through that now. The infographic must be based on a prescribed theory and apply to a chosen industry. In addition, write a summary of approximately 300 words explaining how you create the infographic. Okay, so the first part of it is not this theory, and I'm going to cover that now. Next, it's actually this that they are asking you for. Okay, I'm going to discuss it now. And then obviously the second part is a reflection. So thank you for raising that.
Great,
So
thank you,
just
ma'am.
go, no problem. So there's a tier. Now, once a manager has those different roles that they play, there's still three types of, or three levels of management. And this is what your assignment speaks of. So your assignment is asking you to choose an industry and discuss the levels of management, right? And the skills that are required at those levels. So you have your top, middle, and lower management. And the three skills that are required by managers is conceptual skills, and that's the ability to think strategically, to set goals, to look ahead, to identify crises, potential gaps in the market, potential reasons to start changing strategies, all of those things. So it's that big thinking, like that ability to foresee and plan ahead. The second type is interpersonal skills, and much as we discussed just now, it's that ability to interact with people, to negotiate, to have form a relationship, and to also handle difficult conversations and difficult situations. And then the third type of skill is technical skill, and that is the ability to actually do the tasks of the job. And it would mean, if it's a factory, it means literally working those machines. If it's a service industry, it's about being able to manage the cash point, to manage the stock systems, to manage the floor, supervising those type of things. Now, for every type of manager, regardless of the level, they all utilize these three skills. But the level in which they utilize them or the extent to which they utilize them varies, obviously, because of the type of role that they play. So what we do say is that while management at all levels use these three types of skills, they have a dominant skill. So in the case of your top management, you will see that they have the block is bigger by conceptual skills, then less interpersonal and very little technical. Okay. So what we are saying here is that because top managers are mostly involved in that big picture thinking, the planning, setting the vision and the mission, their dominant skill is that ability to foresee, to plan, to identify gaps, to think strategically. Okay. They do need interpersonal skills because they have to negotiate with employees under them, with stakeholders, the media in certain cases, suppliers, creditors, investors, shareholders, and the list goes on. But they do need technical skills because a lot of the times top management reach that way because they started off, okay? So they wouldn't have to know something about the business and the operations to be where they are, or at least we would hope so. But in their role, skill that they use predominantly is conceptual skills, right? We are not saying that they don't have technical skills. We are saying that they use conceptual skills more. Then when we go to middle management, what do middle management do? What is their predominantly um, what is their tasks? So yes, they lead their department. Their sort of function is leading their department, but they work in between. So they deal with top management, they take the vision, the mission, the goals, plans, whatever needs to be done. They then go to their teams and they disseminate that information, and they deal with lower level managers as well. So we say that as much as they have to be able to think and set plans for their departments and break down the mission and vision to what is required for their teams, and they do have to understand what work entails and what the operation entails because they do manage it to a certain extent. Their main role is that liaison, that in between, dealing with people, staff, and so their dominant skill is interpersonal skills. And then with lower level management, they do have to use conceptual skills because they take instruction from middle management and then they um, break it down to daily tasks, routine tasks for their team on the ground. And they also have a team. So your supervisors, for instance, they have to deal with the team. And so they speak and also need interpersonal skills as well as liaising with customers and middle management. But their main task is to function and do the actual work. So their dominant skill is technical skill. So if you think about it in a practical example, for instance, if you take, let's just take a manufacturing company, they of any sort. Their top managers are usually your board of directors, your CEOs, your shareholders. It's very rare that you will find them on the manufacturing floor manufacturing products. So they would then deal behind the scenes, back office, setting those goals and vision statements and all of that. Your middle managers will then be like your finance manager, your marketing manager, operations managers. So yes, they do understand the work, but their main job is to take what the shareholders are telling them and take it down to the employees on the floor. And then lower level managers in that instance will be supervisors. So supervisors that manage a team and something goes wrong, if a machine doesn't work, they need to sort of QA the work that's coming out to do that quality assurance. So they need to understand how to do the work. Very importantly, and something that you must note, is that it does not mean that they don't have the skills or they have less of a skill. This shows what they use within their roles. So the dominant skills that they need. Does that explain that? Able to answer? Okay. Right. So what you're going to do then is you're going to take any industry of your choice. You're going to explain the theory of this. You're then going to give top, middle, and lower management sort of a role because you are using an industry. So as I said, shareholders, marketing manager, finance manager for middle management, and then lower level management is the supervisors on the floor, and then explain what their tasks are within that industry and why they use certain levels of skills. Okay, thank you for asking that. All right, so I'm going to go over something that's important. And I just want to know if everybody's comfortable now to continue or you need a 5-minute break. All right. So learning units 5, 7, and 8, and I'm not doing all this evening, they cover the 4 functional areas of management. Okay. Planning, organizing, leading, controlling. And we're going to go through each one of that. So learning unit 5 deals with the first step in the process, and it's the planning process. Without planning, none of the other functional areas can make this. Okay. And you'll often hear in management that if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So if we don't know where we're going as a business, we are just existing. Okay? If we don't have an end goal, we're just existing. We don't know how to evaluate ourselves. We don't know how we're doing. We don't know how to explain what we're doing. We don't understand the quality. And essentially, we just exist and we won't exist for too long. So in our daily lives, we plan for everything, even as much as we don't like to plan, we do plan. And the very same thing goes for management. So the planning process has steps, but it doesn't have a start and an end. So it's a circular process, like process is. And that is because planning never stops. So once we achieve something, we restart process. And I'll explain that to you. So goes from establishing a goal right through evaluate and restart. Okay, so I'm going to do this with an example so that you understand it and also give you an idea of how you would answer it if it had to come up in an exam. If you had to explain this process using an example, I'm going to use an example of opening up or wanting to open up beauty salon. Okay, let's just say that. I have a goal and I want to open up beauty salon in a certain area. That's the first step. I know what I want to achieve, but how do I do it? So I move on, want to go in and developing alternate plans. So the first plan is I can go and look for stores, existing stores that are available and for sale, and I can purchase it. Second option is I can start from scratch. The third option is I can start a franchise. Right. So I know what I want, and I've already got 3 plans. Now I need to think, I need to evaluate these plans, and I need to look at the resources that I have with me. So if I had to go and take over a salon or purchase an existing salon, the first thing is that one has to be available, right? What are the chances of that? Why does that owner want to sell? Am I going to get a customer base? Do I have to keep things the same? Am I going to keep the staff? I need to know all of that. Okay. Second option, I start from scratch. I build a salon. I build my own brand. I start with the size that I can afford, and everything is new, and I can create it the way I want to and create that customer perception. Third option is to open up the franchise. It's costly. I have to charge a certain fee, and there's one maybe, I don't know, 5Ks away from me or whatever. Okay, so I've evaluated it. Then obviously I can't spell select, which I see now. I need to select the best plan. Right. So I'm going to say for me, I want to start off from scratch. Most cost effective. And because I like to do things my way, that's the best option for me. I then go with it. So commit. Right. I implement the plan and I give myself a year. At the end of that year, I have to reevaluate my plan. Okay, so I evaluate it firstly. If I am achieving what I said I wanted to and I'm profitable, okay, I can't stop there because I won't stay profitable for long. Start to then replan and on ways on how to increase my customers and to make my business better. So even though I'm doing really well, how do I keep that momentum going? If I evaluate and I decide, sure, I'm making a loss, I have staff sitting here, nobody's coming in. I have peak points, but then I have staff that are sitting and I'm remunerating them and there's no tasks for them. Then I start to now plan on how to mitigate that and solutions to make that business better. I then have a goal all over again. So it's either I'm increasing my customer share or I'm trying to be profitable. And I go through this whole process all over again. The time that we move from one step to the other can be very quickly or it can take a while. It all depends on the goals and how fast or how ready we are to go through it. Okay. But everybody goes through this process. It just time varies. Okay, are you comfortable there? So what types of planning do we do? What types of planning does management do? Now this is, I've taken chapter sort of, and I've created a little bit of a summary for you. Okay. So once you've read through the chapter, this is a nice summary that you can even print out and take into your exam. Will really jog your memory if you understand it. So we have three types of planning: strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning. All right. And the way I'm reading it is I'm going down the way, right? So strategic planning is long term, and that there's that big picture thinking. Okay, so long term is 5 years and over. Now, a long time ago, and this is why I'm saying that textbook versions are important. Um, when I studied, we used to say long term was 10 years, medium term was 3 to 5, and short term we said, well, within a year. And the reason that that has changed is because the pace at which things change has increased. So technology is increasing yearly, sometimes monthly. And to just honestly think 10 years into the future, your plans are obsolete by then. They're just not valid. Okay. So we usually say now 5 years or more. Can't set strategic planning for too, sort of too forward, so too far into the future, because then plans are no longer relevant. If you think about 10 years ago in your own life and where you thought you would be, and the plans that you had, if you're on track, that's amazing. But how many of you knew where you wanted to be 10 years ago? Okay, think about that. All right, who's responsible for this is top management. Whoever their strategic thinking, it's always our top management. And their focus of their plans is gaining competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is being a leader within the industry that they operate in and growing their business. The type of plans is very much business level. So they look at the big picture for the companies, and they have different types of plans that they can achieve. So this slide, I'm going to share the recording, but I think I'm also just going to pop the slides onto Arc for you. So if you want to print out the slide as a summary, you can do so. And I think if you're going to take down notes after you listen to this or while you're doing, so there's the different types of strategic plans that they do. It can take the form of cost leadership. And if you want to take notes down, cost leadership is where business focuses on sort of being the most reasonable, not the most affordable sort of business within that industry. And they gain customers because of that, because they are affordable, they sell a decent product, basic, that's what it needs to do. There's no bells and whistles, and people go and purchase it. All right. So, I mean, there isn't anything that is cheap anymore. But if you think of, I mean, Pep, for example, right? It's not cheap, but it's reasonably priced. Clothes are a good, decent quality. You're not going to get your brand names, but they do the job and they fine. Okay. There's no bells and whistles. You purchase it. You want a shoe, you get a shoe. That's it. You want the black pants, you've got a black pants. That's it. Right. And the other option that they have to place themselves is differentiation. With differentiation, they do something different. So they have something that defines them. They create something different in the market. So they might not be the cheapest, but they are different. And if I had to think of something off the top of my head, um, there's so many different things that come up. If you think of Lovely, medical aid, banking, they have Vitality. That is different. Okay. It's an app where you can track your health, you can exercise, you can get points. They're doing something different as compared to other medical schemes. Yeah, at the top of my head, something is coming up. So people are prepared to pay because they can't really get that offering anywhere else. And then the other option they have is called focus differentiation or focus strategy. And that is where they are not trying to target everybody. They have a specific target audience or market share, and their products are aimed at that group of people, and they don't care about the price because they will always go back and purchase that price, either because of the name, a certain function that it does, reputation, or what it holds within the market to have that product. Okay. And if you think about this is like your niche products. If you'd go and purchase a Porsche, I mean, I don't know much about cars. I can't say it drives like a normal car. But if you're going to purchase a Porsche, you're going to purchase a Porsche. If you're going to purchase a Ferrari, you go in with that in mind. Okay, so they focus on a certain group. Okay, and then corporate level. So business is where they situate the company as a whole, their focus area. And then corporate level is within the business functioning, how they deal with certain issues. So their growth strategy is where they start to go into different markets to grow their business. So they can then go, if you see Woolworths, they have clothing, male, female kiddies, and then they have different, like they have food, they have bedding, so they can go into different markets. They go into pet insurance, and they venture out into all those things, right? Totally unrelated. Integration is where a company decides that they now want to look at their supply chain. And your supply chain is you have your suppliers, is you, um, you have probably your distributors. They then try to acquire elements within their supply chain. So if there's a manufacturer that manufactures clothing, they then try to acquire the source of their raw materials. And so they grow in their business in that way, where they ensure that they constantly have a supply of raw materials. It's theirs, they own it, they feed into their company. Nobody's restricting them with prices for their suppliers. So they acquire that and it feeds into their business. And then defensive strategies is where top management has to make decisions because the company is not performing and they have to protect overall existence of the company. And this is perhaps looking at different stores. If you look at game stores, for instance, I think Edgar's as well, there are certain times where they're not performing and they have to make a decision to close certain branches down. Or they can make a decision to close certain segments down. And that's just to try and protect elements of the business that are functioning correctly. Are there any questions there? Good, thank you. Okay, the next type is your tactical planning. And this is where middle managers sort of take the strategic plans and they break it down into something more realistic. So between 1 and 3 years. So if we are now focusing on providing a different niche product, your medium-term managers will say, okay, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for operations? We have to make sure our product is of quality. What does this mean for marketing? We've got to target the correct people. So we've got to advertise. We've got to have promotions that speak to them. What does sales mean? It means that if people are paying a premium product, we've got to provide the best after service. So that is what breaking down that goals each department means. And then it also means that they look at what is required and they provide or distribute the resources in such a way that they get the best outcome. Okay. And this is your departmental goals, your budgets, resource planning. And you know that if there's a certain product that is just not performing as much as you and I may love it, they will discontinue it. Okay. And you wonder, why did they do that? I really loved this product. It's probably because you were the only person that liked the product or a handful of people. That is where those decisions come into play. Then lastly is operational planning, and that is your day-to-day activities within a company. Can work from just setting a task for today and usually just under a year. And the focus there is on achieving goals effectively, efficiently, and ensuring that we're doing things quick and to the best of our ability in order to achieve the middle and strategic planning goals. Okay, so your long-term, your medium-term plans, they all are broken down into quick, short-term goals that ultimately lead to achieving the rest of them. And these are your single-use plans. So your programs, your projects, getting budgets for your departments, policies, the procedures, the rules that people are working within, all there to achieve the goal. So like I said, if we have a focused product, we got a niche, what does that mean for each department? In your operational planning, they say, okay, now what do I have to function within to achieve this? If I know that I have to give the best after service or service to my customers, what does it mean? It means I must ensure that I follow up with the customers after they buy it. I must have a good returns policy. I must um, do a feedback survey. If I have to make sure that I'm operations, they are producing a product that's of a good quality. What does it mean? It means that if I get suppliers, they must meet certain criteria. Procedures must make sure that I check each step so that there's no wastage. Quality is assured in every step. If something is not of high standard, I don't release it. It's really about what does it mean for me and my team. And then importantly, I think somebody asked on the group is individual plans. So me as a person, what do I have to do within my role within this company to achieve these plans? And call that process management by objectives. And that is where you, as an employee, sit with your manager and you look at your role and business's role and you plan ahead of time. What do I need to achieve? You set your goals up front. It's individual goals within your role. You go through a process of then checking, have you achieved those goals, rethinking, refocusing, and essentially it's your goal setting and mid-year reviews and end of year reviews. Okay. The message that I want to bring across here is that planning, what we've essentially covered in the last 15 or 20 minutes, is the entire planning process and every aspect or every employee in a business is involved in it. What does it mean? It means that regardless of how small your role is, you are doing something to achieve that strategic plan. So every day, every task that you do is towards achieving that big plan. Okay, and if you think about it in perspective of your own life, it's about taking 1 hour out of your Wednesday to attend this class because you are thinking about that big picture of getting your degree in the next 3 or 4 years. Essentially, that it is every step that you take, every second that you sacrifice, every weekend that you put aside, it's about achieving that long term goal. It's not about what I'm doing now, it's about focusing on big thinking. Okay, any questions? So I'm not going to go to the scenario because I think I've been through, giving you a lot of theory this evening, and I want to take an opportunity to ask that settled in anything that you need clarity on. Then most importantly, is there anything that you want me to do with our next session that you feel that you need support with? Good. Right. Then, think all the best for your assignment submission.